Hi everyone! Thank you for checking out my video. This is the first video in a series of 6 that should help you to learn more about flu in a fun way. And it's meant for everyone, students and adults alike. This episode is about the flu virus itself, how it works, why does it change so much from year to year, and why exactly you feel sick when you come down with the flu. I'll try not to go too much into the boring stuff you already know. Here goes. Infection begins with the inhalation of airborne virus, upon which the viral entry occurs. But I think you already know the basics, so let's just go past it quickly. You get the flu when you breathe it in, and the virus travels into your lungs and infects the cells that line the insides of your lungs and your airway. Once a virus comes into contact with a cell, it'll check the cell for ID, actually certain markers on the cell surface, to confirm that it's a human cell and it's the right type. Then it'll force its way into the cell and let loose its genetic material. Now, why am I saying genetic material when I can just say DNA? I mean, everything uses DNA for its genetic material, so it's the same thing, right? Actually, not quite. All of this cellular life uses DNA, but viruses actually aren't cells, so they can bend the rules a little bit. And as it turns out, DNA has a little cousin, RNA. When you're thinking about genetics, the main difference between these two is their stability. RNA breaks down a lot faster, and there are also a lot of typos when you're copying RNA into RNA. And mutations are defined as just a change in a gene, so the mutation rates of RNA viruses are sky high. You can probably tell, given that I've been talking about this, that it's actually pretty relevant. The flu is one of those RNA viruses. All 8 of its RNA segments, which are kind of like human chromosomes, all of those mutate really fast, which is one reason that the flu changes every year. So once the flu has injected its RNA into the cell, the RNA actually gets copied into DNA, and the cell can't tell that apart from its own DNA at that point. And the cell will use the viral DNA just like it would use its own DNA. It'll use it as a blueprint to make a bunch more and more and more viral parts. And eventually those will come together to form tens of thousands of new viruses just from a single cell. Now, it's pretty interesting trivia, but it's also really important to understand the flu and how it works. So imagine what would happen if some poor schmuck gets infected with 2 different types of flu at once. They'd both be tearing through his lungs, trying to infect the same cells, and some of the cells would get infected with both the flu viruses at one time. And when the RNA was getting packaged, the segments might get mixed up, with RNA from both viruses getting into one particle of virus. So, just like the regular one virus scenario, most all of these viral particles would be totally worthless. But some of them would get a unique blend of genetic material from both of the viruses that gave it a completely new and still functional set of genes. And so this virus would be completely new, and the immune system wouldn't really know what hit it. It wouldn't know how to fight this new virus. This exact scenario, it happens all the time, many times every single year. And it's the big reason why the flu virus changes every year, so you can get sick even if you've had the flu before. I mean, you might know you've had the flu before, but your body still doesn't realize that, and your immune system has to figure it out all over again. So, speaking of the immune system, how exactly does it fight off the flu? Remember the cell IDs that I mentioned before? They show up on all of the healthy cells, and when a cell gets sick, they can signal the immune system that something's wrong. The immune response that most people think about probably involves antibodies. The body makes the antibodies that are specific for each threat They get released into the blood and they kill the pathogen. And that can happen in one of two ways. Either the antibody is going to stick onto the bug and stop it from doing anything directly, or the antibody will stick onto the thread and then it will recruit a better immune cell in order to kill it. And I'm sure some of you have realized there's a problem here. The antibodies are actually in the blood and they're just circulating around your bloodstream. So how are they going to get into contact with the flu virus while it's just chilling out inside your cell? And even if the antibodies can get in, it's not like a whole immune cell can squeeze inside of the sick cell and get to the virus. So the immune system actually came up with a whole different way to deal with the invaders that are inside your cells. It's an incredible system, and it's just elegantly designed to help the cell eliminate the pathogen that's inside of it and help return it to full function. Basically, the cell just gets nursed back to health. Just kidding! The immune system's way of dealing with the intracellular problems is to just straight up kill the infected cell. It's not worth it anymore to the body to keep it running. So it'll do that by just telling the cell that it needs to kill itself, or by bombarding it with a whole bunch of toxic chemicals that will do all sorts of things to the cell, like punching a bunch of holes in it until it dies. There are even special cells that are designed just for killing your own cells, and these are actually called natural killer or NK cells. Scientists are pretty bad at naming things, but in some cases the name really is appropriate. So you might be thinking that this is a pretty drastic response. Just killing all of the infected cells maybe could lead to some problems. And you're totally right, at least for some cases. So maybe it might be that there's just way too much virus. Maybe the body overreacted to the virus that was there, or maybe the virus tricked your body into overdoing its response. But in some cases, your own immune system will actually be the one that's making you sick or killing you. So it's not just the virus that's making you feel bad, it's your own body's actions too. And one of the major ways that this happens is through the immune system's communications network, the cytokines. The job of a cytokine is to help the immune system figure out what exactly is going on inside your body. A single immune cell is teeny, and your body's huge in comparison. So it really needs a mission control who can tell it what to do and help coordinate any responses. So these instructions come in the form of the cytokines, telling the immune system that it needs to make antibodies, to kill all the infected cells, or even just not to do anything because nothing's wrong at that point. And this system usually works great. Proof we're not all dead. You can probably hear the but coming though. The catch is that some flu viruses can get the body to send out a lot of these cytokines, way too many, way more than it usually would. And if this happens, your immune system flips out and it goes into overdrive. It thinks everything is a danger and it will attack anything in your body without really worrying about the collateral damage. This is called a cytokine storm, which I always thought would be a really cool name for a band. Of course, the cytokine storm is really gonna mess you up, and you're actually pretty likely to die from the tissue damage caused by the immune system's help, rather than from the actual virus itself. And as a matter of fact, the deadliest pandemic so far, it wasn't the Black Plague, it wasn't an Ebola outbreak. It was actually the Spanish influenza, the 1918 flu, that tore across the globe during World War I 100 years ago, and it killed at least 21 million people. So, on that cheerful note, we end our video. Thank you all so much for watching, and please tune in next time where I'll give you more details on the 1918 flu, modern bird flu, and the reason that most of these pandemic influenza strains nowadays come from China. Until next time, and stay healthy.